The harmattan air was dry enough to crack lips and stubborn enough to sneak into every corner of Ayatoro. It painted the zinc roofs white, powdered the skin of children, and made even the dogs walk slower. Down by the main road, the town was already awake. Okada riders with scarves over their noses revved their engines like they were in a race. Women with wrappers tied tightly around their waists balanced heavy basins of oranges, pineapples, and roasted groundnuts on their heads, calling to early buyers. Bus conductors leaned far out of the windows of yellow Danfo buses, slapping the metal sides with flat palms and shouting, "Mile 12. Mile 12. Enter with your change. Oh, no change for 500 here." The smell of akra frying in groundnut oil drifted from Mama Sada's roadside stall, mixing with a sharper scent of petrol fumes. In the middle of it all, stepping down from a bus that coughed black smoke like an old man clearing his throat, was Abony. She was 16 years old, with neatly braided hair tied at the ends with a bright red ribbon. Her uniform was washed clean but had faded from sky blue to the grayish blue of river water. Her sandals had been polished with care, though the leather was beginning to crack near the toes. She clutched her worn school bag against her chest, a bag her grandmother had patched with leftover cloth from an old wrapper. It was her first day at Olorun High School, the biggest school she had ever seen. Her father had spoken of it often in the past month. "Here, you will learn the ways of the town," he'd said one night as they ate yam pottage under the dim glow of their kerosene lamp. "Your mother and I, we only know the river. But you will know books, the pen, the chalkboard." The memory warmed her chest, but as she stood before the tall iron gates of the school, her stomach felt like a gourd half filled with water, sloshing and unsettled. Inside, the courtyard was a small city of its own. Boys in white shirts and green trousers kicked a worn football near the mango trees. Girls in pleated green skirts walked in groups, arms linked, laughing loud enough to turn heads. Prefects with badges pinned proudly to their chests patrolled like uniformed soldiers, stopping anyone whose shirt wasn't tucked in. Abony had only taken 3 steps inside when the whispers began. "Who is that? Look at her ribbon. Like she's going to a naming ceremony. Even her sandals village style." She felt the back of her neck heat up, but forced herself to keep walking. In her grandmother's village, there was a saying, "When you enter the market, you will hear all kinds of noise. That doesn't mean you drop your basket and run." She was still trying to decide which path led to the administration block when a tall, lanky boy appeared beside her. He had a grin that looked like it was hiding a secret, and his shirt was untucked on one side, the green tie around his neck hanging loose like it was tired of its job. "Cunnel. New girl, N? Welcome to Olorun High. But you're standing in the wrong place." Abony blinked at him. "The wrong place?"
"Cunnel. Yes."
"If you stand here too long, Senior Beezy will turn you into ground pepper." She tilted her head. "Who is Senior Beezy?" "Cunnel. Senior Prefect. Queen of this territory. And you're standing in her royal spot." Abony almost laughed. "A royal spot? In school?" Cunnel shrugged. "In her mind, yes. And you should know, in Olorun High, what someone believes can be more dangerous than what is true." They both glanced toward the far side of the courtyard where a tall girl with glittering gold-painted nails was surrounded by 2 other prefects. She was laughing, but it was the kind of laugh that made Abony feel it could turn sharp in a second. Cunnel leaned closer. "Advice? Anywhere far from trouble is the right place to stand. But here," he gave a small, knowing smile, "trouble will still find you." Abony looked at him properly then, and though she didn't know it yet, she had just met the boy who would change her entire time at Olorun High. The bell for morning assembly clanged through the schoolyard like a stubborn metal pot refusing to break. Students hurried toward the assembly ground under the wide shade of the 2 old mango trees. The trees were so large that if their roots could speak, they would tell the stories of every child who had ever passed through Olorun High. Abony joined the line of SS2 girls, her eyes darting left and right, taking in every corner of this strange new school. She noticed the iron water tank behind the classrooms, the large dusty field that doubled as a football pitch, and the long staff room windows where teachers peered out like watchful hawks. The assembly began with the national anthem, the school anthem, and the daily recitation of the pledge. Ebony's voice was softer than the rest. She still felt like a visitor in someone else's house. Then Mr. Olorun, the cultural studies teacher, stepped forward. His agbada was a bright mustard yellow, and the sunlight bouncing off his bald had made it look like polished glass. He cleared his throat. "My children, listen well. Next month, we will celebrate our cultural day." His voice rolled out like a drumbeat, slow, deliberate. "Mr. Olorun, on that day, we will honor the pride of our school, the iron drum." A ripple of murmurs ran through the students. Some glanced at each other, others smirked. "Mr. Olorun, some of you think it is only an old drum kept in the cultural hall for decoration. But let me tell you, that drum has been here longer than even the school. Before these classrooms were built, before these mango trees had leaves, the drum sat in this place." His voice lowered, and the crowd leaned in. "Mr. Olorun, they say it can speak, that it has a spirit inside, that if you beat it when the moon is full, it will reveal secrets. It will shame the liar and free the innocent."
But
He paused, letting the harmattan breeze fill the silence. "Mr. Olorun, truth is like hot oil. It will burn even the one who pours it." Some students chuckled. Others, like Kunnel, gave a small nod as if the man had said something very important. From the corner of her eye, Ebony saw Beezy roll her eyes. The prefect whispered to one of her friends, and they both stifled laughter. But for Ebony, the word stuck. In her grandmother's riverside village, there were stories of drums that spoke, drums that called names in the dead of night, drums that could expose a thief in front of the whole market. She told herself it was just a story. But somewhere deep inside, she felt a prickle. It was the same feeling she used to get as a child when her grandmother told a tale and added quietly at the end, "And this one is true." The sun was a stubborn overseer that afternoon, pouring its heat over the red earth until the ground seemed to breathe out waves of fire. The lunch bell had just rung, and the schoolyard turned into a marketplace of chatter, laughter, and clattering lunch tins. Ebony sat on a wooden bench under one of the mango trees, unwrapping the leaves of her lunch parcel. Inside was ofada rice with pepper sauce, wrapped the way Mama Ebony always did it, neat, with an extra fold at the edge. She was halfway through her first bite when she felt a shadow fall across her food. Beezy stood there with two other prefects, her smile thin as palm wine left in the sun too long. "Beezy, new girl enjoying yourself?" Ebony nodded cautiously.
yes.
"Why?" Beezy tilted her head, pretending to admire the food. Is that ofada? You know there's a rule, no strong-smelling food during lunch break. It disturbs others." One of the prefects snickered. "Especially the important people." Ebony blinked. She had read the school handbook the night before. There was no such rule. She looked at Beezy and said quietly, "I didn't see that in the rule book." The air between them tightened. Beezy's smile didn't fade, but her eyes hardened. "Beezy, are you calling me a liar?" Other students began to glance in their direction. A group of boys paused their football game to watch. Ebony felt the weight of the moment. Her grandmother's voice came to her mind. "If you bow too quickly, even a goat will ride your back." So she straightened her shoulders. "Ebony, I'm only saying, I'll keep eating my food, unless a teacher tells me otherwise." Gasps rippled through the small crowd. One prefect muttered, "This girl doesn't know who she's talking to." Beezy's face remained calm, but her voice carried the softness of a knife wrapped in cloth. "Beezy, be careful, new girl. In this school, some people disappear from their seat before exams." With that, she turned and walked away, her friends following, leaving behind the faint scent of lavender perfume and silent tension. Ebony's heart thudded. She knew this wasn't over. In fact, she had just lit the first fire. From across the yard, Kunnel leaned against a wall, watching the whole thing. His lips curved into the smallest of smiles, like someone who knew a storm was coming and also knew where to find an umbrella. By the next morning, the air around Olorun High felt different. Not the air of the harmattan or the breeze from the mango trees, but something sharper, invisible, and pointed like a mosquito sting. It started small. 2 junior students giggled when Ebony passed them on her way to class. In the corridor, she heard her name whispered, followed by sudden silence. When she got to her desk, she found a scrap of paper folded neatly in the middle of her books. She opened it. In small, jagged handwriting, it read, "Beware. They say you used charms to pass your last school exams." Ebony's stomach tightened. She crumpled the paper quickly and shoved it into her bag. At break time, the whispers grew louder. A group of girls from another class passed by, and one of them sang under her breath, "Ebony the Witch, reading in the dark, with the spirits and their marks." The laughter that followed was like dry leaves rustling, light but cutting. By afternoon, the rumor had shape. The new girl, Ebony, was clever because she used juju. Some students avoided her. Others stared as if trying to spot a secret mark on her skin. Ebony knew this didn't happen by accident. And when she saw Beezy in the hallway, leaning against the wall with her friends, eyes glinting, she understood perfectly where it had come from. She walked past them without a word, but Beezy called out, voice dripping with sweetness. "Beezy, careful with your bag, Ebony. We wouldn't want anything magical falling out." The girls around her burst into laughter. Ebony's jaw tightened, but she kept walking. Her grandmother had taught her something important. When a snake is dancing in the market, the drummer is never far away. If Beezy was the dancing snake, then Ebony intended to find the drummer and stop the music. That night, as she lay in her bed, she thought about the legend of the talking drum. A thought began to form, dangerous and tempting. What if the drum really could speak? What if it could tell the whole school the truth? The next day, the sky was heavy with the kind of clouds that made teachers hurry through lessons. During lunch break, Ebony decided to avoid the noisy schoolyard and headed instead to the back of the assembly hall, a quiet place where the walls still carried faint echoes of morning prayers. She sat on the steps, opening her lunch parcel, when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned to see Cunnel, tall, slim, with the kind of easy swagger that made other boys nod when he passed. His school shirt was slightly untucked, and there was a mischievous gleam in his eyes. "Cunnel, you're braver than you look." Ebony frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" Cunnel sat beside her without waiting for permission, plucking a mango leaf from the ground and twirling it between his fingers. "Cunnel, not many people stand up to Beezy on their first week. Even the teachers tread carefully. She has connections." Ebony arched an eyebrow. "Connections?" Cunnel lowered his voice. "Her uncle is chairman of the school board. Her mother is close friends with the principal. And she knows things about people, secrets that she uses when she wants something." Ebony's grip on her food tightened. "So she's the snake my grandmother warned me about." Cunnel smirked. "Exactly. But the thing is, Beezy doesn't just pick on people for fun. She picks on people when she's afraid of them." Ebony looked at him sharply. "Why would she be afraid of me? I just got here." Cunnel glanced around to make sure no one was listening, then leaned in. "Cunnel, because of the drum." Her heartbeat quickened. "What drum?" He smiled faintly. "The talking drum in the music room. You've seen it, haven't you? That's not just any drum. My grandfather told me the story. It belonged to a village Babalawo who could make it speak truths no one dared to say out loud. The school bought it years ago for cultural display, but—" He hesitated, his gaze drifting toward the empty music room. "Cunnel, some say if you strike it the right way, at the right hour, it will tell you what someone is hiding." Ebony's skin tingled. "And Beezy?" Cunnel's eyes hardened. "Cunnel, Beezy has secrets she can't afford to let anyone know. She thinks you've already found out one of them." The bell rang, scattering their words into the air, but Cunnel's last sentence stayed with Ebony. As they walked back toward class, he whispered, "Cunnel, if you're going to survive here, Ebony, stay close to me. And stay away from the drum, unless you're ready for what it might say." That Friday, Olorun High held its weekly cultural dance rehearsal. The whole school buzzed with the sound of talking drums, shakirs, and wooden flutes. Students in bright Ankara wrappers and beaded hair filled the assembly hall, while others rushed to finish homework before the weekend. Ebony wasn't in the mood for dancing. She sat at the edge of the crowd, her mind replaying Connell's words. Stay away from the drum, unless you're ready for what it might say. The more she tried to ignore it, the more the thought pulled her in. By the time the rehearsal ended and the schoolyard grew quiet, she had made her decision. She would hear the drum for herself. The corridors were nearly empty when she slipped back into the music room. Moonlight streamed through the high windows, painting the instruments in silver shadows. The drum sat in the center of the room on its carved wooden stand, its hide glistening faintly as if it had been oiled only moments ago. Ebony approached slowly. The air was cooler here, but heavy, as though the room was holding its breath. She remembered her grandmother's stories, how in the old days, talking drums carried messages from one village to another, even warning of danger long before it arrived. Her fingers brushed the drum surface. It was warm. She picked up the curved drumstick lying beside it. Ebony, whispering, "I just want the truth." With a deep breath, she struck the drum once.
Dum.
The sound was rich, almost human in tone. She struck again, this time letting her hand linger. Dum dum dum. Then, before she could lift the stick for a third strike, a low voice seemed to grow from inside the drum, rising through the air like smoke. Drum. The girl you fear fears the fire she lit herself. Ebony froze. The words didn't echo in the room. They echoed inside her chest. She swallowed hard. What does that mean? The drum gave no answer. Instead, it hummed softly, like it was holding back another truth. Suddenly, footsteps echoed in the hallway. Ebony's heart leapt. She quickly dropped the stick and stepped away from the drum. The door creaked open. In the dim moonlight, Connell's tall figure appeared. His eyes swept the room and landed on her. "Connell, you struck it, didn't you?" She didn't answer. He stepped closer, his voice tense. "Connell, Ebony, once you start listening to the drum, it doesn't stop talking to you. And sometimes the truth it tells is worse than a lie." By Monday morning, Olorun high buzzed with whispers. Something had happened over the weekend, something no one could confirm, but everyone seemed to know about. Students huddled in corners, speaking in half-sentences, glancing over shoulders, and breaking into nervous laughter whenever Beezy walked by. Beezy, however, walked like a queen. Her gold-studded hairpins caught the sunlight, her white socks were spotless, and her lips curled in that same perfect smirk. But Ebony noticed something new. Her eyes darted around the schoolyard more often, as if scanning for an invisible threat. During English class, while the teacher wrote a list of proverbs on the blackboard, a folded note slid onto Ebony's desk. She opened it. It was from Connell. "Meet me behind the library. It's starting." Her stomach nodded. Behind the library, Connell leaned against the wall, arms folded.
He didn't waste time.
"Connell, do you remember what the drum said?" "Ebony, the girl I fear fears the fire she lit herself." Connell nodded. Over the weekend, Beezy's father had a big fight with her uncle, the school board chairman. Something about money that went missing from a community project. And guess who told her uncle where to find the money in the first place? Ebony's eyes widened. "Beezy." Connell's voice dropped to a whisper. She set the whole thing in motion. She thought it would make her uncle more powerful, but now it's about to burn her. People are talking. Teachers are watching her differently. Just then, a shadow fell across them. Beezy stood there, arms crossed, her smile colder than harmattan wind. "Beezy, so the village girl and the street boy think they can play detective." Connell straightened, but Ebony didn't move. "Beezy, careful, Ebony. In this school, people who dig into other people's business sometimes get buried in it." She stepped closer, close enough that Ebony could smell her rose-scented perfume. "Beezy, and you, Connell, should know better than to drag her into your little games." With that, she walked away, her laughter trailing behind like a warning bell. Ebony turned to Connell. "She knows." Connell's jaw tightened. "Then we need to hear the drum again, and soon." before she decides what to do with us. The sky over Olorun High was a heavy gray that afternoon, the kind that pressed on your chest and made even the trees stand still. By the time the last bell rang, most students rushed home before the rain could start. But Ebony stayed. She and Connell slipped quietly into the music room once more. The air inside was warmer than outside, as though the drum had been waiting for them.
Connell shut the door.
Connell, last time, it told us about Beezy. But there's more. The drum doesn't waste its voice. If it talks, it's because the truth is close. Ebony hesitated. She had been thinking about the warning it gave before. The girl you fear fears the fire she lit herself. And how it had unfolded so quickly. If the next truth was about her, was she ready to hear it? She stepped forward and picked up the drumstick. This time, she didn't whisper. Ebony, tell me what I need to know. She struck the drum once.
Dumb.
The sound rolled through the room like distant thunder. A long pause. Then, the voice came, low, old, and layered, as though many people spoke at once. Drum. You are not here to finish your schooling. You are here to finish a debt. Ebony's grip on the stick loosened. A debt. The voice continued, slower this time. Drum. A promise made before you were born. A promise your mother could not keep, but you must. Connell's eyes flicked toward her. Connell. What promise? What debt? But the drum had gone silent. Before Ebony could speak, a loud crack of thunder shook the room. The windows rattled, and somewhere in the distance, the rain began to fall in heavy sheets. They both turned toward the door when it creaked open. Standing there, drenched from the rain, was a woman neither of them had seen before. Tall, with silver beads in her braids and a long wrapper patterned with ancient cowrie shells. She looked straight at Ebony. Woman. So, you've heard the drum. The woman closed the door behind her, shutting out the rain. For a moment, the only sound in the room was the slow dripping of water from her braids onto the floor. Her eyes, sharp, dark, and heavy with memory, never left Ebony's face. Woman. You have your mother's eyes and her stubbornness. I can see it from here. Ebony stiffened. Who are you? The woman smiled faintly, but there was no warmth in it. Woman. I am Olorun Mornike. Your mother and I once made a pact. A pact bound not by paper, but by blood. Connell frowned. Blood? What kind of pact? Mornike ignored him, walking toward the drum. She laid her hand on its smooth surface, and Ebony swore she felt the air tighten. Mornike. This drum is not a toy for schoolchildren. It was crafted by the first drummer of Olorun village, a man who could speak to spirits. Your mother borrowed its voice once, to save her own life. Ebony's voice was barely a whisper. Save her life from what? Mornike turned to her fully now. Mornike. From the curse of the Fire Mother, a spirit who guards the truth. Your mother swore to return the drum after 7 harvests. She did not. And so, the debt passed to her blood to you. Ebony's hands trembled. So, what do you want me to do? The woman's expression hardened. Mornike. Return the drum to the Fire Mother, or it will call her here. And when she comes, she will take something from you that can never be returned. A flash of lightning illuminated the room, and in that second, Ebony saw something terrifying, a faint red glow flickering deep inside Mornike's pupils, like embers waiting to flare. Ebony stood frozen, the drum silent in front of her. 3 market days. A curse she didn't understand. And Beezy, somewhere in the school, probably already plotting her next move. The storm did not end with the night. By morning, Olorun High was wrapped in a gray mist, the kind that clung to your skin and made the world feel smaller. Students whispered about the strange weather, saying it was the gods' way of warning the farmers. But Ebony knew better. Connell met her at the school gate. Connell. I didn't sleep. Kept thinking about that woman and the way she looked at you. Like she already knew how the story ends. Ebony adjusted her satchel nervously. Ebony. We have 3 market days. We need to figure out how to find the Fire Mother before she finds us. The first sign. It happened during literature class. Mr. Adebanjo was reading aloud when the air in the room shifted, as though all the oxygen had been pulled out for a second. Ebony's pen stopped moving. The window glass rippled, not from the wind, but as if something on the other side had brushed against it. Then she saw it, a faint handprint appearing on the misted glass, but the fingers were too long, and tipped with what looked like glowing embers. The moment her eyes locked on it, the handprint vanished. Ebony didn't tell anyone, but at lunch she noticed something else. The plants in the school garden had started to wither on just one side, the side facing the music room where the drum was kept. Cunnel noticed too. Cunnel, it's starting, Ebony. She's getting closer. Beezy's game. As if the curse wasn't enough, Beezy had her own plans. That afternoon, she cornered Ebony behind the science block, her two friends flanking her. Beezy. So, the little village girl thinks she's special now. Walking around with that boy, like you own the school. Ebony kept her voice even. I don't have time for your games. Beezy smirked. Beezy, you should make time, because I know something about a drum. And about a woman who came asking for you yesterday. Ebony's stomach dropped. What did she tell you? Beezy's smile widened. Beezy, enough to know you're in trouble. And maybe, I want to see what happens when trouble catches you. As Beezy walked away, a dry wind suddenly blew through the corridor, hot and heavy, carrying the faint scent of smoke. Ebony realized, with a chill running through her, that the fire mother's shadow had just stepped into the school.